Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. And in this video, we're going to talk about Live FIR, which is a toolkit for building web applications using Golang with minimal knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we'll break this down into two parts. In the first part, I'll probably explain like a very simple example, and in the next part, we'll take a look at how to build like a to-do list application using this particular framework with just Go and some JavaScript, but will not write any JavaScript. We'll use some JavaScript, but will not write any. So yeah, this is the website. You can take a look. I'll leave a link to this website in the video description as well. And if you want to take a look at the API of this particular Go package, you can also go to you can visit this link, and this is where you'll see what is available and what types are available, what functions are available on those types, and things like that. So I'll leave a link to this as well in the video description. If you're interested, do take a look. Now let's take a look at the Go demo application that I have prepared for you guys. So this is pretty basic stuff. You have the main package, and then inside of that main, you have the main function. So we first install live FIR using this particular using the go get command. And once that is installed, you can now import that, and we create a controller, a new FIR controller. We give it a name, which is a sample. So this is FIR app, and we make sure that it runs in the development mode so that we can get those nice logs when we start running the application. So this is basically the controller, and what a controller is that it helps you group a bunch of views together. So you have this controller here, and we'll use the standard HTTP package inside of Golang net/HTTP to start a server. So we'll say HTTP handle, and on the root, we'll say controller dot route function, and we'll pass in this index function. So there is a bit to unpack here. So what we basically do is we call the route function on the controller that FIR exposes, and we pass to it a function that returns route options. So basically, every request that goes to the root taken up by this particular controller, and the corresponding view will be rendered. We'll also take a look at how the view gets rendered. And here we just start the server on port 9867. Except for creating a FIR controller, the rest of it is just the basic stuff with creating a server in Golang. So now let's take a look at this index function, which is of particular interest here. So if you look at the index function here, it returns a FIR.route options type, right? So what it returns is a slice of route options, FIR.route options, and we are able to add a bunch of route options here. Okay, so the first route option that we use is ID. So we give it an ID. So the ID will see in action in the next part, the part two of this particular series. And then we have the content. So you basically say that whenever a request comes for slash, you render this content, which is counter.html, right? We'll also take a look at the counter.html later. And then we have a couple of events that we are also passing in as route option. One is the load function, which is defined by the FIR library. So whenever the content is loaded, this function will be called, and to it we get the context, and on context we have this key value pair that you can store. We are storing the count variable inside of the context, and then what we do is every time the route is loaded, we just read the value on the count variable, right? And we'll use the atomic standard package inside of Go, and we'll also talk about why do we need this particular, why just we can't use just a count variable. We'll also talk about that. And then here we have these two things. We have defined two events, an INC event and a DEC event. So an increment event and a decrement event. So whenever an increment event is triggered, you'll set the count variable to you'll set the count variable by adding one to it. And then whenever a DC event is fired, that is a decrement event is fired, we'll set the count variable to one minus. So to start our application, I'll just use go run main.go. And this will pretty much, yeah, this is pretty much started the development server. And this is pretty fast. And as you can see, you get all of this logging thanks to setting the development mode as true. So now let's talk about this counter.html. So remember, this is the content that we load whenever we hit the root route. So if you look at the counter.html, it's pretty basic. We have a body tag inside of which we have a count. This is FIR, so we have binding a variable. So we have defined a count here, right? So this is how you reference it in the template. The count, we say this. So whatever is the count variable will be displayed here. Whatever is the value of the count variable, that will be displayed here. And we also define a block, this count, right? So, and then the most interesting part is this form. So we create a form with method post, and then we have two buttons. We have the add button and the minus button. And when someone clicks on the plus or the negative button, an event is triggered with the name that we defined here. So we defined INC and DEC. Same will be triggered here. So this gets loaded on the front end. And when someone clicks on this form action is triggered and the control goes over here and then you add it basically. And the UI reloads with the fresh value, right? So now let's take a look at the example. So I have this example here, pretty underwhelming, nothing fancy. And when I click on the plus sign, as you can see, the app actually reloads every time I click. So if I click this once more, we can actually see at this refresh icon, right? So this twitches a lot because it's actually refreshing the whole page, which I know is not ideal. We'll take a look at how you can actually avoid this in the part two. Now let's try an interesting experiment. I'll open the same app in two different browser windows. Okay, so I have the both of these loaded here. Now, if I actually increment a count here, right? If I make this say 10, and now if I increment this, you can see that it automatically changes to 12, right? Now, if I increment this here, and then if I refresh, 14 appears here. Now, this looks like as if they're sharing a count variable underneath, right? And this is exactly what is happening. So if you go back to the code here, as you can see, there is this one count variable which is shared by this route, right? So whenever a request comes for this particular handler, it's going to trigger this route function. And since this count variable is defined inside of this route options, your count variable is shared between multiple requests made to the same route by two different browsers. That's why you see this value updating on the other screen, even if I don't do it here, right? Because it's a shared resource. Now, if it is a shared resource, the problem is of synchronization, right? So, for example, if someone adds here some value, and if someone adds here value, how do you keep that in sync, right? That's why we use this atomic sync atomic, so that if two requests at the same time come to access this particular shared resource, it is made sure that those two don't update it at the same time, right? Because then it will lead to significant inconsistency. That's why we have this atomic dot load int32 and similarly atomic dot add int32. So this is for solving the synchronization problem. Yeah, so this has been like a very brisk overview of what live FIR offers. And you can create pretty decent applications with live FIR. And we'll probably discuss more in depth in the next video. So if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. And the part two will release very, very soon. And yeah, thank you guys for checking this out. Yeah, and that's it. See you guys in the next one.